distinguished guests, dear BP Fellows, dear Scouts, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our MC for today. He is a Cub Scout leader from here in Rio de Janeiro, and he has been a Pinky, that's a staff member at Candesteg International Scout Center. Please welcome on stage, Gui Viana.
Hi, hello, and welcome to the 2024 Impact Seminar. I'm glad to welcome you in the vibrant city of Rio de Janeiro, a city that's well known by its energy, its diversity, and its resilience, just like Scouting. This afternoon, we're going to embark on a journey where you're going to get inspired, challenged, and energized. In this afternoon, we're going to explore how Scouting impacts young people's lives and their communities. First of all, I will start calling our keynote speaker, who's going to talk with us about the importance of access for education. After, we're going to have 4 amazing Scouts who are going to talk about how Scouting is working on their countries. They brought us projects that they are running on their countries. They talk about humanitarian actions, health and well-being, vulnerable communities, and of course, youth leadership. After that, we're going to have a panel discussion where we're going to go even deeper on those subjects, talking about the importance of education and how education can help develop youth leaderships, and also how those youth leaderships are changing the global challenges. Before we wrap up, we're going to have, after the panel discussion, you're going to have time to ask your questions, to give your comments, and everything on a Q&A session. Just before we finish, our colleagues from the World Scout Foundation are going to come to talk to us a bit more how we can continue to support and grow the impact of Scouting. All right. So let's get our afternoon started. Our keynote speaker, and I'm glad to welcome her, is Professor Claudia Costin. And she's a lead expert on education and a former global director of education at World Bank. She has a wealth of experience, and that includes being the Secretary of Education of Rio de Janeiro. She's also the founder of the Institute of Educational Policies at Fundação Getúlio Vargas, and co-founding of Todos pela Educação. The list continues. Professor Costin is also a member of UNESCO's Institute of Lifelong Learning. She's been a key person for the change and to tell us about how education can impact young people. So please, help me to welcome on stage Professor Costin.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a big pleasure being here. It's not every day that we have a majesty in the room. So, Your Majesty, my father, who worked for SKF, would be very proud if he knew that I would be speaking to Your Majesty and to all these incredible persons who are supporting the Scouts movement. So I need you to put on my presentation. So I'm going to speak about education. The SDGs for us Brazilians is ODS, which means Sustainable Development Goals that were established in September 2015. I played a role on the SDG devoted to education, so I cannot talk about education for the future without taking a quick look at SDG 4 and what the country where we are, the region, Latin America, and the world has achieved so far. I will stress a little bit more the case for developing countries. So please. So SDG 4 states, and it was stated in 2015, looking at 2030, where we should be in 2030, which means in less than 6 years, we established that we, by 2030, need to ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and well, there was one before that, please, if you can go back. Okay, SDG 4 establishes that we need to ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. This is easy to state, but very difficult to achieve, because it is not as in 2000, where in Senegal, the world met and decided that we need to ensure access to primary education, period. We are talking about what is the quality of the education that we need to achieve. So it's not just ensuring that everybody is in school. It's ensuring everybody is in school with quality education, with inclusive education, and it is for all. And promoting lifelong learning experiences is something very meaningful, not only to make sure that nobody is lagging behind, but also that in times of AI, artificial intelligence, where 3 billion job posts will be extinguished till 2030, that we will ensure that young people, as the job posts are extinguished, have access to reskilling, upskilling, to be ready for the world that we will live in. Next. SDG 4 has, no, yes. SDG 4 has 7 goals, but I chose 3 of them just to make myself understood, and so that I can connect with what is needed from civil society and from the Scout movement to support us. So one of the goals is to, by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys, and girls are important in this context, the mention of this. In Brazil, we have more girls that complete secondary education than boys. Boys leave sometimes for work and other things. But I visited schools in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, where a girl's education is a big issue, and we have to look at them. So ensure that all girls and boys complete, it's not just having access, it's to complete free, equitable, quality, primary and secondary education. For those of you who are Brazilians, primary is Fundamental 1, secondary is Fundamental 2, and high school. We don't complete in Brazil. Only 69% of the kids complete secondary education. And here in Brazil, for the ones that are not Brazilians, 82% of Brazilian kids are in public schools. So private schools are for a minority of the kids. So if we want to have a big impact in education, we have to look very attentively at those schools. And the word equitable is very meaningful. So the kids that are, one of you here that I talked before entering this room, taught at Complexo da Maré, which is one of our favelas, one of our slums. You have to give more to the schools that are in more vulnerable areas. You have to make sure that they get access to excellent education so that you can establish equality of opportunities. And this is very important. So conclude primary and secondary education leading to relevant and effective learning outcomes. What is quality in the context of SDG? It's learning. It's learning for all. Next. So, having said that, where are we in this context in the developing world? We are not ensuring learning for all. Yes, the world has progressed a lot in ensuring access, but kids are not learning as they should. If I can be very candid about my own country, only 44% of second graders by the end of the school years are reading and writing at early literacy level. It's very saddening. We are progressing. Many of the countries in Latin America are progressing, but at a very slow pace. And to complicate our lives, COVID came, and in Brazil and in many countries in Latin America, including Mexico, including Colombia, 2 years without schools. Learning from home when you don't have internet connection. How could they? It was very challenging. Okay, go to the next one. So, there is a learning crisis resulting not only from COVID, but enhanced by COVID. And the education inequalities that were already huge became even bigger. And so in this context, talking about meritocracy or things like that seems even cruel, because those kids they haven't learned as they should. So we still have low enrollment in early childhood education, which in many countries is called nursery schools or crashes. Early literacy is not ensured, as I mentioned, by the end of primary. Huge education inequalities, and I could go on forever. Insufficient teachers. Yes, we have insufficient teachers, especially in some areas where the market employs those young professionals, let's say, for example, teachers of physics, of chemistry, but in some cases even in mathematics. In low quality pre-service education, you know, we have a situation where, let me compare being a teacher and being a physician. When you prepare a future physician, there is a connection between theory and practice, but not in the education field. Just to talk about Brazil, 7 in each 10 teachers, are prepared in universities through distance learning. But this is a complicated profession. It's one of the most challenging profession. And you have to have practice, not only theory. So low quality of pre-service education is an issue here in Argentina that I know very well. Uruguay, a little bit less, but it's a big issue. And lack of motivation. Low learning outcomes. If you look at PISA, it's, for those of you who don't know, the OECD organizes every 3 years an exam, an assessment, which allow comparisons among countries, which is very, very good, because it's not based on the national curriculum, but on the abilities that the 15-year-old kid should have developed at the age of 15 to have a healthy, prosperous life in his adulthood. Well, Latin America is at the bottom third of this rank. Well, some countries in South Asia as well, unfortunately, especially the ones from public schools. Next. Okay. I can add fragile professional culture. Teachers are not prepared to feel themselves, feel as professionals. There is not a strong evidence-based approach to teaching, and not enough time for collaboration among teachers. Not enough emphasis on attitudes and values in the process of teaching. And here I see a role for the Boys and Girls Scouts, such as student agency, learning that you are the one responsible to build your own future life. When you talk about entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is not only about building an enterprise, a company. It's also about building your own life. So the notion of student agency is very important. Openness to new experiences and persistence. Next. Well, but in this context, something new appeared. The artificial intelligence. The ILO, the International Labour Organization, created during 18 months a global commission on the future of work. And I was one of the members, the 26 members that in Geneva we discussed how we should address every issue to ensure that the new generation will be prepared for this situation. I was the only member with an education background. So what will happen with the digital revolution and the advent of artificial intelligence? Osborne and Frey, two researchers from the University of Oxford, say that 3 billion job posts will be extinguished till 2030. What will happen? Probably, like in other industrial revolutions, other job posts will be created, definitely. But they will demand more sophisticated skills. And many countries in Latin America, in Africa, or in South Asia are not delivering on the skills that were demanded for the 20th century. How can we develop more sophisticated skills? So, what will happen? Okay, a demand. My corrector maintain the word in Portuguese. With the future of work, there will be a demand for higher level competences. And if we don't do anything, there will be an increase in inequality. Let me tell you another thing about my own country. Brazil is one of the most unequal countries in the world, if you look at socioeconomic indicators. Increasing inequality brings with itself violence, increased violence, and leads to fragile citizenship and the emergency of all kinds of populism. I don't need to tell you about this. This is happening all around the world, but including in Brazil right now. So, to deal with this, some countries have developed some ways to act differently, to prepare this new generation not to be substituted by robots, if I can simplify my words. So what have they been doing? First, focusing in collaborative problem solving with creativity and critical thinking. What does this mean exactly? Robots are unable to collaborate, and to collaborate in complex problems, only in operational problems. And creativity is a human endeavor, not a robot endeavor. They are not ready for creativity. They can replicate things, but they cannot be, they are not capable of creativity. And critical thinking doesn't mean to know by heart what your teacher thinks and give it back in a test. Is to be able to read something and question, what are the sources? How come? Why they arrive at this conclusion? What is the data connected to that? And here, I want to show that many of the things that we need for the future, you are already developing in the Scouts movement. Okay, collaborate to solve issues. You're already doing it. When you go in Rio Grande do Sul, when there was this big flood, and society had to collaborate, computers couldn't do that. ChatGPT couldn't do that, but people can. People build connections. And you teach young people to build connections. This is very valuable. And to have critical thinking, which means working together, question one another, try to find a better answer for things. Curriculum flexibility and interdisciplinary approach, what we called project-based learning. You already develop projects. So you could be even more valuable for us, the world, the community. It could be very important for us. Hands-on education, learning by doing. Dewey, Maria Montessori, even Paulo Freire, one Brazilian, well-known Brazilian educationalist, they talked a lot about how we learn by doing. You do a lot of learn by doing. A lot. Learning basic, developing basic abilities. The writing revolution is very important for this time. Being able to put on paper your thinking, to process your thinking, because we will need to have a school that teaches to think much more. Knowing things by heart. When I'm almost 70, when I was in school, we knew a lot of things by heart, but we didn't learn how to think. Especially because in Brazil, the school journey was and still is 4 hours a day for most kids. So if you have 13 subject areas shrinked into 4 hours a day, you just develop rote learning. You learn things by heart, copying the blackboard and giving it back in a test. This is not teaching how to think. So to write more, to write in history, to write in classes of geography, in chemistry, so as to process your own thinking. International Baccalaureate deal a lot with that. The digital culture and hybrid learning. Yes, in Brazil, we are not teaching kids how to read and write properly, but we could not say, well, word, stop where you are, and we will, when we are ready to, we are already teaching well early literacy, we will teach digital culture it's not one thing or the other. We need to teach both. And digital culture is part of the world where we are living. It doesn't mean that we should give kids mobile phones or a lot of digital resources. We need to teach digital competencies, how to navigate safely in the internet, how to do research on the internet and in books, how to read books but also read sources that are not in books. I'm very, very against mobile phones in school. Let me state that. But having said that, yes, some people are, I'm very, very, because it's portable. So the kid will be looking at his mobile. We adults do this. How many family dinners, everybody is looking at his or her own phone. In classrooms, and remember, the prefrontal cortex of a person is only mature when he or she is 25 years old. So demanding an adolescent kid to have the discipline needed to have a phone in the classroom and paying attention and discussing with colleagues is very harmful. The city of Rio de Janeiro decided to forbid this, even during recess. Why? Because kids need to play. It's part of your education to be in fresh air and to play. So I'm very against mobile phones in the classroom and in the recess. But I'm not against AI in schools. We will need to teach kids, especially at a lower and upper secondary, how to do research. I met a teacher from Chile who said that she gave this following assignment to her kids. First, write an essay on that specific subject. Put it on ChatGPT and ask for correction. Then you write a third version commenting on what ChatGPT told you. If you agree or do not agree with the correction, and give me the third thing, the three things, which I found very interesting, a very interesting approach. Inverted classroom is something that many countries are doing. The explanatory class, the class where I give concepts, is sent home with a little research for the kids to do or a short video to watch, and applying the concepts in the classroom, the teacher will be present to help. Using the best talent of the teacher to ensure learning. In the last PISA that was devoted to science, I talked to André Schleicher, and he said that Brazilian students know the table of elements, the chemistry table of elements by heart, but they don't know what to do about it. They don't think scientifically. When I discussed this with Argentina, they said that it's the same thing. With a Mexican colleague, she said it's the same thing. We're not teaching the kids to think scientifically, and we need to do it. So if I invert the classroom, in the classroom, the teacher will try to apply the concepts. You can help on that as well. Teaching the kids to think historically, scientifically, to read the text and discuss, and so on. The 21st century skills. Oh, you know a lot about that. Persistence. My goodness, if you don't teach persistence in the Scouts movement, you do. And persistence is very important for life, not only for work, for life. You know, to correct one's mistakes, you have to have persistence. To learn mathematics, you need persistence, but also to deal with the difficulties that life brings to you. And education for values. Teaching kids to have empathy, to put yourself in another person's shoes. Like I saw a video of what the Scouts movement in Rio Grande do Sul, when there was where the floods were doing, and student agency that I referred to before. So, what could the Scouts movement do? Okay. So you're part of experimental informal education. You already do, and I'm going to summarize parts of what I said, teaching values and youth agency, to teaching kids that they are part of an intergenerational ethics movement, because they will be the ones to guard the planet for their next generation. My generation has already destroyed this planet a lot. Let's prepare the next generation not to continue doing the terrible things that we did. Teaching independent thinking. You know, one of the problems with populism is that we are trained to follow leaders with no questioning. We are not taught to think independently. We are taught to copy some masters, leaders. No, we need to have independent thinking. Developing teamwork. This is needed for work, for the future of work, but this is also needed for other endeavors, like being a good citizen, and life skills, promoting sustainability, I already mentioned this, fostering diversity and inclusion, building a better world. We want every ethnic group, we want every person with disability, a typical person, working and living together to build this world into something where everybody feels welcome. You are already doing it. So I'm finishing with my utopia. You know, when we talk about utopia, everybody thinks an impossible endeavor. I'm using the word in a different sense. There is a Brazilian philosopher, already dead, Rubens Alves, who was also a Protestant pastor. And he said, utopia, we should redefine it as something that has not yet happened, but you dream of making it happen. So in this context, what school should we build for the future? The whole of society, not just the educators. So I dream of schools where everybody learns, where you could balance excellence with equity. It's not lowering the bar so that everybody feels included. It's having high expectations for everyone, especially the most vulnerable kids, giving them the supports they need to prosper, but high expectations for everyone. Schools where students and teachers work collaboratively. I'm a member of the Education Board of North Anglia, which is a group of 87 very good schools. And collaboration is something that is being taught in each one of these 87 schools. Collaboration. We won't build a world where kids will, in the future, collaborate at at work if they don't see their teachers collaborating and they don't learn to solve collaborative problem solving. I dream of schools where knowledge is not fragmented, and I take here the utopia from Edgar Morin. Edgar Morin is 103 years old right now, and he wrote a book in 2003 saying that we are teaching French kids the subject areas in a very fragmented way, and he proposed a change in schools that happened in France, thanks to his suggestion. Schools that teach students to be independent thinkers, not to be captured by populists, and independent learners that can learn lifelong learning as an attitude, and schools that have booked time and space dedicated to prepare the next generation for autonomy. Fostering autonomy, but at the same time, solidarity. It's not different. It's not something impossible to put together, autonomy and solidarity. You can only help others if you feel yourself a complete human being. The basis for global citizenship. That was what I brought for our reflection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Costin, for such an inspired message. Professor, really, as listening to your words, that made me think on what a great impact we can make when we continue investing on learning and equal opportunity for everybody. And on that note, it's now time to hear about the Scouts. Our Scouts who came from all around the world, the ones that are over there on their countries, on the groundwork, making real change happen. Audience, as you listen to those amazing projects and amazing speakers, I really invite you to think on how our continued support help to empower them to be the real change makers. How we support them to take actions when it's needed. Our first speaker is Luiza. She's a very engaged young leader. You might know her as the National Coordinator for Messages of Peace, but today she's going to talk about her state in the southern of Brazil, Rio Grande do Sul. Just before Luiza gets into the stage, we're going to show a video of the critical relief efforts the Scouts from Brazil are putting on the southern Brazil after the floods of this year.
Chuva, vento forte e granizo causam estragos no Rio Grande do Sul, com danos em centenas de casas.
Pouco mais de uma semana, mais de 400 municípios gaúchos tiveram bairros inteiros engolidos. A maior tragédia climática da história do Rio Grande do Sul já deixou mais de 100 mortos e afetou mais de 1,5 milhão de pessoas.
Welcome to Brazil. I'm here to share you my journey to Scouting. That started in some kind of a way, a cliche way, through movies. As a child with a spinal condition, I couldn't do any kind of physical activities. Instead, I watched movies, some with scouts. And then I dreamed about earning badges and camping in the woods and helping my community. So that dream stuck with me, and I'm finally living it out. So at the age of 13, my parents got me in a local scout group, and I never left. So since then, in the past 13 years, I did a lot of stuff. So at the age of 18, I joined the Rio State team, where I could learn more about how to run and develop community projects. 1 year later, I became the state coordinator of Masters of Peace Initiative, where I could help more scouts to learn about how to do community projects. And now, I am the Masters of Peace National Coordinator, where I can inspire scouts all across the country on how to build their own actions and make a difference in their communities. Sounds like a perfect life, right? Imagine this. As of tomorrow, you have no food, no home, no clothes. Everything is gone. That was the reality of many families in my state, Rio Grande do Sul. Many families missed and lost everything from day to night. But then, us as scouts, we joined our forces and did something about it. In September 2023, the first wave of floods affected some of the cities in my state. So what we could do as scouts? Me and my scout group, we went to Mussum, one of the worst hit areas. There was houses full of mud, families that lost everything, thousands of volunteers together making a change. My scout group stayed, and we cleaned many houses for days, cleaning out the mud. It was exhausting. 12 scouts, 8 hours, only one house. But when we saw the homeowner's face of gratitude, we saw that we are not only moving mud, we were restoring hope. But that's not it all. In April 2024, it started to rain, but it rained non-stop for 2 months, affecting more than 80% of my state. In this case, there were no more towns, no more bridges. The roads were full underwater. So what we could do? We couldn't go anywhere. So my scout group and we started volunteering at donation centers. Every piece of cloth, every bag of rice, and every pair of shoes were part of a lifeline for those in need. It was there that we saw the power that solidarity can have. So thanks to the national and international fundraising efforts, including many of you, we raised over than $64,000 in donations. More than $18,000 went directly to food and meals for those in need. But we are still far away from change. We still have a lot of work to do, and we are still doing our best to make the efforts to happen. We saw on that Scout is not only about knots and campfires. Scouting is about resilience, empathy, and leadership. It was there that I saw that we can have the strength to do even more, that we can be a better version of ourselves, like the little girl with a spinal condition that dreamed to make a change. So with that, I can bring you a phrase of the founder of Scouting, Baden-Powell. There is no teaching to compare with example. And I hope that my example can show you the power of small actions, and that you can have the efforts and you are able to make the change to happen. Thank you all for your support, and I hope that you can join us in building a better future together.
Thank you, Luiza, for your strong words. Thank you for showing the reality of your state and showing how the Scouts are putting an effort together to get through this challenge. As Luiza stated strongly, you are also part of this long-term solution. Every single gift from every single BP fellow make an impact. And many of you have contributed to the Scout Solidarity Fund. So for that, thank you. All right, so now it's time for us to get to know, and for me to get to know a bit more the audience. It's time to get to know who's in this room. So we're going to do a quick activity. So I want you to clap once and very loud as you can, if you are a BP fellow. That's great. And since we're talking about youth leadership and youth representation, please clap twice and very strong if you're a young BP fellow. Nice. And now, I want you to clap 3 times if you are not a BP fellow yet, but would like to keep learning about Scouting. Great. That takes us to a journey around the world. We're going to now travel to Mexico. Our new speaker comes all the way from Mexico, and his name is Max. Max has the spirit of Scout in his heart. He used the transformative power of Scouting to create a free and safe space for young people to talk about sexual education. Please help me to welcome Max on stage.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I am Maximiliano Reda. I'm 19 years old, and I'm a brother from Mexico City. I'll be honest, I'm really excited for this. It's my first time out of Mexico. Raise your hand who's first time in Brazil? Well, mine too. I've been in Scouting since I was 11 years old, and it totally changed my story. It gave me a sense of life and the opportunity to develop and discover myself. Scouting became my second family. During the pandemic, I struggled with depression and anxiety. It was a really tough moment for me. Scouting was the way I was able to manage and deal with all of it. I started getting involved in impactful projects and leadership roles. Along the way, I've met friends who, like me, were really passionate about non-common topics in Mexico, such as health and education. One particular friend opened my eyes to the real-life impact of these issues when facing a deeply personal health decision without the guidance or support that many might take for granted. That's how Cuerpos Libres was born. Imagine me, a 16-year-old boy talking about sexual education, and with the challenge of gathering a team of specialists. Cuerpos Libres is a project done by 5 young Scouts of Mexico and supported by professionals. Our objective is to give young people access to free, safe, and comprehensive information about sexual health, self-esteem, and well-being. We mostly worked on Instagram, but we also did activities in schools, giving the information in a more familiar way for kids and teenagers. We also help solving doubts being answered by our specialists. Creating safe spaces for Mexican youth is crucial for our development and well-being. These environments just not provide us from safe spaces, but also platforms for open dialogue, essential issues such as mental health, sexual health, and self-esteem. In a country where these topics are often stigmatized and overlooked, having safe spaces where young people feel heard and supported can make all the difference. When youth is encouraged to express themselves and seek help, they develop resilience and a sense of belonging. Initiatives like Cuerpos Libres demonstrate the power of young people in fostering a culture of understanding and care, ultimately preparing us to navigate life challenges with strength and compassion. Working with people of my age and getting recognition about my work enabled me to inspire and help others for having great impact on their communities and for creating an inclusive society. To my colleague Scouts, thank you for your support and for showing me what we are capable of when we are empowered. Together, we're creating a world where mental, physical, and emotional health matters, and where young people became leaders for a better future. Scouting is more than just education. It's a life-changing experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Max, for your inspirational project. Thank you for supporting young people to have free space to talk and to learn about their health and well-being. We are now going to move to a panel discussion. And after that, we're going to come back with some more Scouts to talk about their projects. On our panel, our leaders are going to talk about the importance of access for education, the power of non-formal education, and, of course, the importance of youth-led initiatives. So please, help me welcome on stage our panelists. I would like to welcome on stage now Professor Claudia Costin, Chrissy Pollithy, Marcos Versteeg, and Felipe Marqueis.
Well, thank you very much for the warm welcome. And you have already heard a lot from Professor Costin, and you had a wonderful introduction to her long list of titles and experience. So now I'm going to introduce also our colleagues, Chrissy and Marcos. And Chrissy is an elected member of the World Scout Committee, which is the main executive body of the World Organization of the Scout Movement, for those in the room who are not familiar with it, right? And she's also the appointed member of the World Scout Committee in the World Scout Foundation board. So wearing two hats over here, right? And Chrissy will be with us for the next triennium. Chrissy is very keen and committed on fostering non-formal education, good governance, equity, sustainable development. She has a career defined by strategic leadership and transformative impact, and she's currently responsible for steering organizational development and transformation for the German Savings Bank Association. Chrissy, welcome.
Thank you for the kind words of introduction. Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Then we also have Marcos Versteeg, who is an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience leading business across Brazil. After a career of marketing as a marketing executive for multinational companies, he founded several businesses employing hundreds of people. So he's known for his empathetic, hands-on leadership style. He's also a scout. He was a Cub Scout in his scout group. He is a leader. He has volunteered in the floods in Rio Grande do Sul. So Marcos is also from within scouting and will bring to us a business perspective as well. So we have Claudia, the professor from outside of scouting, an expert on education. We have Marcos, who grew up in scouting and who is a leader in scouting and understands also the entrepreneurial side of things. And of course, we have Chrissy, who's an institutional representative of scouting. So very varied. And my name is Felipe. I am an employee of the World Scout Foundation, and I know many of you, and many of you run away from me when you see and hide your wallets when you see me. I know. But we will talk because I am persistent. I learned persistence, as Professor mentioned. We'll talk more about that later. Fantastic. So let me start by saying, Claudia, you have been instrumental in the formulation of SDG 4, as we learned. and which is all about quality education. And we spoke about it, but I really wanted to summarize again, how do you see non-formal education methods, such as Scouting, how can they contribute to closing these educational gaps globally, and why should the world care?
You know, Felipe, when we look at countries that have great school system, society is involved. It's not only about the government, the Ministry of Education, or even the teachers. Is that in the neighborhood of the school, society is interested in the schools. That when kids are seen outside the school at school hours, families bring them back to school. Just to give you a very clear example. And they discuss school quality. And so how could civil society get involved? It's about their country, it's about their world. So if in the Scout movement you discuss things as important as how to help people in need during a flood, for example, what we saw about Rio Grande do Sul, I was there as well, I saw many of the things that society did. We should consider quality education as important and as strategic as dealing with floods. And informal education being responsible for teaching values to the kids. Those kids are also in schools, and those kids are seeing kids being bullied, kids not learning, kids. So taking back to their school the empathy that they learned in the Boy Scout movement could be a way to support.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. We're so glad to hear that, because we are already working so much on this, right? Placing Scouting as a contributor to quality education, as a non-formal education complement, right? And in fact, you heard earlier Ivan, the president of Brazilian Scouts, in his opening speech, he talked about a project that we are developing in Bahia called Transforming Lives, where Scouting is paired with schools in vulnerable areas of the Salvador community and providing the non-formal education and values of Scouting inside the schools in partnership with schools.
That's great news.
Yes,
great
so
news.
Fantastic. So we're going to talk more about that later. Great. Well, let's then move on, Marcos. If we talk a little bit about your career, you've built a successful career in marketing, in entrepreneurship. You also work with brand experience, I understand, and you hire a lot of people, right? So I wanted to first ask, how did the non-formal education model of Scouting complement the skills that you acquired through your formal education and prepare you for your career journey?
Thank you, Felipe. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Scouting, I'm very excited to be here. I'm not an expert, as Professor Claudia here is in education, but I'm an expert in something that she is not, which is my own experience, my life experience. And I think that each one of us as well, we're all experts on our experiences. My experience has been, I have to be correct with my formal education and say that I had a very privileged formal education in private schools here in Brazil, and then going on to university into business school, a very good business school here in Brazil as well, university, which gave me a bunch of skills, technical skills mainly, I'd say, which led me into my professional life. When I got to my professional life, I thought that, okay, here I am, bring it on. I was not ready. I was a young trainee. I had to figure things out and sort of relearn many skills that I had never learned in my formal education. But I went into Scouting from an early age as a Cub Scout at 7 years old. And looking back then, my first job I got because of scouting. Because at my interview, I mentioned that I had been a scout. And so, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. Scouting is not as popular as it is in other countries, here in Brazil. But many people know about scouting. And I got my job. And then I started working. And I, now looking back, recognize that there are loads of skills that I learned from scouting. And not only the skills, but how I learned them. There's that saying that goes something like, if you teach me, I forget. If you show me, I'll remember. If you involve me, I'll learn. And I was sitting watching these presentations here. One of the skills that I learned from an early age was courage. These young people who came here to give their presentations, they took a lot of courage to do what they did, and it took a lot of courage for them to come here on stage and speak to all of you. Today, I learned, first started learning courage when I had to sleep at my first Cub camp, alone, first night out without my family, and that progressively increased. New challenges came along and more courage. Commitment, they call it soft skills, but it's, wow, what a soft skill. Have commitment and to compromise towards a promise. If you don't have commitment, how can you be part of a team? I think that the seed of teamwork is commitment to your leader, or as a leader to your fellow teammates. So many skills, but not only the skills, but how I learned them was very important.
The method, the non-formal education method, the personal progression, everything that we know about the Scout method again. Fantastic. That's incredible. And as you said, many of the things is about how you learned, and it's not only about the skills and the employability and the life skills, it's also about the principles and the character building, right? And we have Scouts, 57 million members around the world in over 176 national Scout organizations, which is a large movement, right? So, Chrissy, how does the World Scout Committee's strategy focuses on ensuring an effective implementation of this non-formal educational method down to the local level?
How much time do we have? I can probably talk about this for 2 days, but let me start with, if you call it the World Scout Committee strategy, so the strategy of an oversight organ, you might as well just take it over there to the trash, à la poubelle, immediately. Nobody will care. The only way that you're able to influence a confederation of 176 member organizations, and within those you have boards and you have oversight committees and all of those things, you govern by consent. People don't care about strategies of organs for organs. They care about being involved. And what we did this year is we decided to embark on a new journey of a 10-year strategy. And we didn't just lock the World Scout Committee away for a year and saw what would come out. We included our member organizations in a participatory process over 2 years. We looked at external trends. Where is our world moving? What is the reality of the young people we serve today? What is also the reality of our organizations? There is shrinking civil society space for what Scouts do and what our organizations do, and that matters. We're a volunteer-driven movement, so you have to take that into account. And over 2 years, we consolidated all of those insights, and we asked young people, we asked almost 10,000 of them, what matters to you? Where do you think Scouting can contribute to your life? How can we best serve you? And we came up with a strategy that was unanimously adopted at our World Scout Conference this year. And if you've ever run any sort of consent process, you know that getting people to unanimously decide on a strategy paper that really shapes the work you do for 10 years, that's an incredible feat. And I'm so proud of the fact that we managed to get that done. Because this is how, with an organization that's so distributed and so local and has so much character in every country, that's how you make sure that we move in the same direction. That we're guided by a set of values and principles and goals that really move into the same direction, but at different paces. So this is really how we look at that.
That's fantastic. And I'm just wanted to say, we agreed that I would call it the World Scout Committee's strategy in advance, so she could slap me in the face with that answer. So
why are you ratting me out like this, Felipe? Huh?
Fantastic. Well, Marcos, you spoke about your perspective on how you learned those skills and the method, how that was important to you. Now, let's talk about a little bit the business perspective. And when you're hiring people, right, and the skills that you're searching for, right, how do you see, how do scouts compare to non-scouts when you are measuring them against employees?
That's an easy one. I was hired because I had been a scout for my first job, and further on my career as well, I always brought in my scouting experience as something a story to tell, and it always helped. And as an employer, certainly I'd try and pick the ones that were scouts. And I've heard that from other employers as well. They always say, look, if a scout comes, especially people who have been scouts, it's a beautiful movement that is up to date and continues delivering. I noted, I was listening attentively to your presentation, and Professor Claudia mentioned building connections. I'll tell you, just as building connections, a small story. I had the privilege as well of going to the last World Scout Jamboree as a troop leader. It was a challenging World Scout Jamboree, and I'd do it all over again. We arrived, the troop, we arrived there, the unit, at 1 o'clock in the morning at the day we arrived, and we were completely lost. We didn't know exactly where. We had to pitch our tents, and my troop members were trying to figure out the tents and doing it all at night, and everybody very tired. And other children or young people started appearing, and where are they? Who are these people? They're not mine. I'm not in charge of them. I discovered that half of them came from Qatar, which were our left neighbors, and the other half came from Nepal, which were way back. They were just waiting troops to come in to help them, because they had been helped by Belgium or whomever. So that's building connections there, happening. The digital era as well. I worked for Nokia, just there before the iPhone, when Nokia still existed. We built these devices to make people like them, and people improved those devices from iPhones and from there on. So yes, they're made for us to become hooked on these devices. Scouting is an excellent way to get people away from these devices and go and play games and go and learn how to get frustrated and trial and error, because these machines aren't made to get you frustrated. They're made to get you dopamine shots. So, your first question, if I'd hire a scout, if you're looking for a job, Felipe, just...
That's why we need to invest in more scouting. Well, talking about that then, we are a fundraising organization at the World Scout Foundation. Our job is to make sure that these scouts have the tools and resources to be able to achieve the positive impact we want to see in the world. So, Professor, I'm going to ask you then, how do you see, why would it be important, and how can we frame scouting as such a critical player in education towards the face of our donors? So how do we frame scouting as such a critical player in education so that our donors keep on contributing?
Okay, we are living times of human capital, more important than financial resources, more important, or financial capital, more important than anything is people. yes, many people will be substituted, or job posts will be substituted by machines. But humans are very valuable as long as they have values. They are educated to work together, to solve problems together, as I mentioned in my presentation. Machines can collaborate on operational problems, but not on complex problems. But for that to work, many of the things that Marcos was mentioning that he learned in before his professional life through scouting are very important. First, courage. Aristotle used to say that courage is one of the biggest virtues. Courage is something that you are not necessarily born with that. You are born very dependent, and then you have to build your independence and to take risks. A businessman takes risk. It demands courage. But if you learn early on to sleep away from home, to light a fire. I don't know how to do it. Felipe, please learn me one day how to light a fire with no matches or something like that. But being now not without playing, yes, there are some skills that you learn in informal education. We have to bring this to formal education, perhaps more than helping schools. You could help teachers. Have teachers going to a camp and learning by doing, by living the situation that you live. Teachers from public schools that deal with vulnerable kids, for example. How to develop courage, teamwork, empathy, and a lot of the qualities or of the abilities that you develop through this kind of informal education.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Professor. We love, talking about the formal, the non-formal, the informal education. We like to make this distinction as well, that, the non-formal is still organized, it's just not recognized, right? It is organized, there's a personal progression, there's a strategy to it. It is just maybe not recognized yet. And informal is, when you put too little water in the rice and it burns and sticks to the pan, right? That's when you learn to put more water.
Learning with your mistakes.
Exactly, learning by doing. Learning by burning, precisely. Serve the food a little better than you cooked it. Well, Chrissy, let me then, let's talk a little bit more about this impact of humanitarian action, but also the global support of scouting to the SDGs. We have recently reached a few milestones when it comes to the support that scouting has provided to the SDGs globally, right? If I'm not mistaken, 2.8 billion hours of community service focused on the SDGs, which is a tremendous amount of work, and that's the ones that we can count, right? I am quite sure that a lot of the work done in the floods in the south of Brazil have not yet been added to that total. So the question is, how can the support of our donors, the donations, how will they help us scale these sort of contributions to the SDGs?
So I'll take your question in two parts, because sometimes, in scouting we say scouting gets kids ready for life, and sometimes life includes catastrophes. And this is where humanitarian action comes in. And scouting operates on two levels. One is the individual, and it includes all those values you just mentioned. It develops empathy and courage and noticing that something needs to get done and somebody needs to do it. Nobody else is going to solve your problem. So individually, scouting gets kids ready. And if we can get more kids ready to take action at that point, that's the scaling impact on a very personal level. But if you've ever done any frontline work in humanitarian action, you know individual readiness is not the only factor that contributes to actually being able to solve a crisis. You also need systems and mechanisms in place that allow you to distribute the work. One of the key issues is that you have help available in a crisis situation, but you don't know how to employ it. There are no networks on the ground. Scouting is a network on the ground. We have a network in every country, in every territory, so we're ready to act. So by being able to invest in those networks, by having strong and resilient scouting organizations that are ready to take action when there is no warning that you might need to take action, because those things, they happen overnight. This is where you really scale your impact. And I'll take your question a little bit broader, because our life, thankfully, doesn't only consist of crises, but scouting contributes to a number of SDGs, from quality education to gender equality. A lot of these things, they happen where they're most needed. They accelerate change where it's most needed in the world. And by being part of a global community, and by fundraising for a global community and supporting it, you're able to help where it's most needed. You're a catalyst that makes sure it doesn't just go where you know. It goes where it's most needed. And I think this is an incredible value that if you want to do good in the world, there's not a lot of other places where you can find that.
Wow, round of applause for that. Well, I think this is so inspiring, and it's really coming clear after the professor's talk on the needs of education globally and the needs of young people, and how scouting is already supplying and being a solution for so many of these needs, and will continue to remain extremely relevant in the coming years and the coming century. So I really believe we have touched the point here. I would like to say thank you to our panelists. We are on a little bit of a schedule because the professor needs to catch a flight in 40 minutes. So at this point, we're gonna close this, this part of the panel. Later on, Marcos and Chrissy will come back with all of our speakers, and we'll then take some questions from you, and we'll interact with you. But for now, I wanted to say a very big thank you to Professor Claudia Costin. Thank you for being with us. And because we know you're a teacher and you love learning, we have then prepared a little thank you gift. This is our own Educating for Global Citizenship book, written by Scouts, by a Scout, Edward Valerie. So we would love to present you with this.
Thank you very, very much. And I have to just say a quick word. Absolutely. My father was the president of a Swedish company in Brazil, SKF Tools, and he would be so proud if he knew that I was in front of His Majesty, Your Majesty. So thank you for everybody for the wonderful work that you do, and for those of you who finance the Scout movement, for your support. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll be back very soon.
Scouting in Brazil still face some challenges on vulnerable communities. But luckily, we do have people who raise their voice for change. Our next speaker comes from warm city of Salvador, Bahia. Salatiel, he has his heart as warm as his city. And he uses his voice to speak up for his community, to empower his rovers, to be supportive and to be active on his state. Just before Salatiel comes to the stage, and I want you to welcome him really well, we're gonna show you a video about Brazilian scouting on vulnerable communities.
O Brasil. Aqui nós encontramos o carnaval, lugares paradisíacos, diversidade cultural e alegria. Mas em um país de tamanho continental, as situações nem sempre são as mais favoráveis. As diferenças socioeconômicas estão presentes ao longo do nosso território e podemos observá-las. Como a taxa de analfabetismo que caiu para 7%, mas a sua concentração acontece em áreas rurais e municípios menores, como no Nordeste, onde algumas cidades têm taxas acima de 30%, enquanto cidades do Sul e Sudeste têm taxas abaixo de 2%. No Brasil, desastres naturais como enchentes, deslizamentos e estiagens afetam principalmente as populações vulneráveis, agravando as desigualdades socioeconômicas. Famílias de baixa renda, que vivem em áreas de risco, são as mais prejudicadas por essas tragédias, como as enchentes no Sul e Sudeste, secas no Nordeste e incêndios no Norte e no Centro-Oeste. A falta de infraestrutura adequada e a demora na reconstrução dessas áreas tornam a recuperação mais difícil para os pobres, que enfrentam perdas maiores e têm menos recurso para recomeçar. Isso nos mostra que mesmo em um país tão rico e abundante em energia do seu povo, podemos notar as dificuldades. Ao longo de seu centenário, os escoteiros do Brasil se destacaram por suas contribuições significativas para a sociedade, por meio de ações sociais e ambientais. Na área ambiental, o movimento promove a preservação da natureza, reflorestamento e projetos de sustentabilidade, como a proposta de plantio de 100 mil árvores em comemoração aos 100 anos dos escoteiros do Brasil. Esses esforços refletem a missão de transformar os cidadãos conscientes e responsáveis. No Rio de Janeiro, um evento conhecido como Mutirão Pioneiro, por meio de ações comunitárias, traz melhorias em escolas e centros de ajuda social. Já no Espírito Santo, um grupo escoteiro funciona diariamente para trazer suporte à região, onde os projetos beneficiam a comunidade local, como um projeto chamado Alimentação Cidadã, além das atividades diárias para crianças. Buscando expandir o escotismo pelo território nacional, o estado da Bahia foi escolhido para desenvolver um novo projeto por ser o mais populoso do Nordeste, onde o estado representa 1,3% do quadro de associados dos escoteiros do Brasil. Em Salvador e sua região metropolitana, o projeto busca gerar impacto positivo em diversas áreas, promovendo o desenvolvimento pessoal e social dos jovens, com foco em habilidades como liderança e trabalho em equipe. Ele também contribui para a redução da violência e inclusão social ao oferecer atividades estruturadas em comunidades vulneráveis, no contraturno escolar. Em poucos meses, mais de 100 jovens já vêm sendo impactados diariamente, complementando a educação formal com aprendizado prático e reforçando o engajamento escolar. Essas iniciativas não podem parar. Vamos juntos, pelos escoteiros do Brasil.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, since my mother is a scout, I became a scout since from an early age. So, raise your hand who's been a scout in your childhood. Oh my God, a lot of little cubs, yay. So, you guys understand me when I said Scout feels always like a family for me. A family that gives me a long-lasting friendships, good memories about being in the wood, doing campfires, and not only that, teach me how to be a citizen, be ready to be an action in my society, in my community also. As you guys can see, I'm a really chatty person. My friend said that, anyway. So, why not use this voice to do action in my community? Why not use this voice to do something good for my own? Why not use this voice to engage with the necessity? So, as you guys know, as an overall, our key pillars of being community services in our community. So, in Brazil, we call it Rover Savage Project, or AKA Mutirão Pioneiro in Portuguese. This project is served to be the skilled affection and action to the communities through education, reducing the lack of opportunities for these people through scouting. So, okay. Why do this? Why this project is so good? Because we put the scouts in front of action to be part of also the community, to understand the necessities of the community. So why do this in my hometown? Why you need to do that, actually? The last joint effort in my hometown was like 10 years ago. And as you guys can see in the video, the participation of Scouts in the general of Brazilian Scout offices is really low. Less than 4% of Scouts is active in our state. We need to change that. And how we're going to change that? With youth participation. So we had that idea to come back with the Multipio. Our project not only going to bring activities for our community, but also put our youngers in the face of that. So our actions was like bringing storytelling actions for the little ones to increase their imagination, put the youngest to understand and see how the Scouts is also a form of living. Because unfortunately also, for the youngest from my state, we passed through a lot of things. We saw a lot of violence every day, a lot of our friends getting lost by the drugs, a lot of guns in front of us. So many of us have the idea that that's the only way to live. That's the only vision that we're going to have to the future. Or we're going to have to work through a lot of years to try to get out of this. So with our joint effort, we had the idea to bring this to them. You don't need to wait to this. Scouts are giving you the chance of being part of community. Or understand your place in the world, to understand that there exists other ways beyond that. There's a good welcoming for the good. So this project was really good, not only for me, but the Bahia Rovers, to understand that our voices have power to change the reality in our community. To say to the little ones, you can be also a part of also this too. Every good voice raised for good must be heard. And I want to invite you all the fellowships to continue empowering this project like this. You guys are changing communities. You guys are changing lives. Keep doing this because we are completely changing the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Salatiel, for such a heartwarming project. Remind us of the power of Scouting has on amplifying the voice of young people for them to be the real change makers on their communities. By now, you have heard how Scouting is thriving in all different backgrounds. And the World Scout Foundation is committed to driving even more support towards Scouting. Imagine if we could have even more children, especially children in vulnerable communities, to receive the power of Scouting education. The project that Salatiel just presented aligns perfectly with our global project, Ticket to Life. And we are glad to announce that the project that was once based in Africa and Asia Pacific has now spread its wings to Inter-America and Europe, reaching even more people. Reaching, with the power of education, children in the streets, refugees, and other vulnerable communities. That leads us to our last speaker. Obek, she comes from Honduras, and she has her heart driven by education. She's an Earth Tribe coordinator, and she believes that she can change the world through the power of quality education and gender equality. So please, help me welcome on stage the coordinator of Teach for Change, Obek Folk.
Good afternoon. My mom used to say, children without education are like birds without wings. Unfortunately, in Honduras, we suffer due to lack of opportunities, street violence, and gender inequality. In my opinion, I am going to introduce you to one of the most important topics. Can you guess what it is? That's very good. Education. Education is the key of human progress, is the base of sustainability and development in our communities. That's how Teach for Change was born. An idea created by 8 scouts around the world, united by the Inter-American Leadership Training, or as I call it, the ILT. You may have heard my fellow speakers talk about the ILT or the importance of it in their projects. Well, the Inter-American Leadership Training is an international course for leadership for scouts. It helps scouts all around the world strengthen their leadership and create a strong impact in their community. Returning to my project, myself and other scouts were able to create 4 aspects important all around the world. Teach for Change is an education project based on SDG number 4. Do you remember what SDG number 4 talks about? Education, quality education. Very good, all of you. So our 4 aspects are going to be, number 1, we're going to create spaces so that our young adults and children can develop in the most wonderful way. Aspect number 2, we're going to provide tools and a very amazing way of learning so that our all children can learn in the most proper way. Aspect number 3, we're going to develop young adults to create an impact in their society, imposing their ideas and their creativity. And aspect number 4, we're going to provide our teachers new teaching techniques so that they can learn and that all our students can learn and no one is left behind. This project is really close to my heart. It has created an impact that I didn't know that I was capable of. Thanks to you and to all the World Scout Foundation, we are able to change the world one project at a time. Sorry, I am going to give you 2 examples in Honduras of the impacts of our project. Example number 1, our high schoolers almost graduating, we provide a workshop that shows them their capabilities and strengthen their ideas. They graduated not so long enough, and they all did the exam of the university in the National Honduran University. Can you guess what happened? All of them passed the test. Yes. Example number 2. In one of our workshops, one of our 8th graders discovered he likes astronomy, right? The stars. Who could have guessed? So he went and participated in an astronomy national contest, and he won 3rd place national level. Can you imagine? He's only 12 years old. So now I say, let's give them wings. Education gives them freedom to soar, explore new horizons, and reach heights that they never thought possible. Thank you very much.
As we heard in the panel discussion, Scouting is all about preparing young people for life. And Obek's project shows us how powerful our mission is. Audience, as Marco well said in the panel discussion, let's remember that those 4 scouts come from very different backgrounds. And it's their commitment to our mission who make them take those challenges, who have the courage to take those challenges. Not only the challenges that they are facing in their countries, but the challenge to come here and speak in front of such a great audience. The challenge to speak in a language that's not their own. That just shows us how diversity and how walk close to diversity just make us stronger. So for that, I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank Luiza, I want to thank Max, and I want to thank Salatiel, and now I want to thank Obek for coming here and sharing their story and sharing their project with us. Now, it's time to actually call them back. So, so we're going to call all our 4 speakers back and our lovely panelists to a Q&A session where now you guys can have the voice. You can ask us your questions, your thoughts, your comments, and be active on that discussion. So please help me welcoming everybody back to the stage.
Well, very good. We are back, and this is the moment where we want you to ask questions to our lovely speakers, but also our panelists. These are the fruits of your support. As we said, Scouting is all about education, but it's also about what we do with the education, the quality education that we get. It's all about empowering these young people to take action. It's not only educating them, it's supporting them in their journey to becoming active citizens, right? And we have 4 amazing, fantastic examples around here. So your chance to ask questions. We have Michelle over here with a microphone. We have Guy with another microphone. They're going to be working on their steps today. And if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, take the microphone, stand up, say your name, say where you're from, and then you ask your question. Okay? And also who you're addressing this question to, so we know who's going to answer. Did you guys understand? If you understood, clap once.
I like that.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
Hello, my name is Tom Baltudis. I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA. And this is a question and comment for Luiza. I know I very much appreciate the work your scouts have done with the flooding projects in southern Brazil. And I want to compliment you for reaching out through the Scout donation platform for funds for that project. And I'd like to say I was able to match donations for those contributions and help Scouts. And there was actually more donations that came in for that assistance. Can you talk about what the impact is of the community seeing Scouts helping the community recover from the flooding, and how that has helped grow Scouting in your communities?
For sure. Thank you so much for your question. So after the floods, like during the floods as well, Scouts from our state put together more than 1 million hours of service. And with that, we could impact more communities across the whole state, because remember, it was like 80% of our state. So there was Scouts everywhere getting impacted in the community. So one good thing about it is that the communities could see us more. They could see us in action, helping them. We were more open from our Scout group, doing activities every Saturday. Year action every single day there, every single donation center, every single place that they need help, we were there. So, of course, we are still getting more data of all the impact that we are still doing, because we are still having a lot of things that we need to rebuild and act. Also, the money is still being actively being used. So, of course, $18,000 went directly to donations of food and meals for those in need. But we also have some projects made by the Scout state team of my state. So we have like a board that is also using those donations for 2 main projects focused for Scouts as well. So for Scout groups that lose everything, so for them to have more structure, and also for Scout families that lose all their houses, they can have household appliances as well. So we can see that the impact of in the communities, there is always a lot of stories that, oh, there was Scouts that helped us, that donated something to us, that donated food. Oh, we saw them here. We saw someone with a scarf like yours around, or I saw someone with a scarf with a different color, but they are like with you as well. And we are like, yes, all of them are Scouts. We are all a family. So maybe you are a different color, but we are everyone together. So thank you so much for your question. And of course, we are doing a lot of big impact in our communities. And we can see that is making a huge difference inside and outside of Scouting.
Wow, thank you, Luiza. Luiza, during your presentation, you said something like, there's no better teacher than example.
Of course.
Of course. Well, let me then also commend Tom. Tom, you set a beautiful example in establishing matching donations. So we picked a couple of projects together with you, and when the donations came through the Scout donation platform, you matched those donations, high numbers. So we wanted to say thank you for setting this example, and we're hoping that others will follow on that. Next question. Right there in the middle.
Thank you. I'm Lars Collin from Denmark. I have a question to you, Marcos. What we heard today, or this afternoon, are wonderful examples of projects that Scouting is involved in. But other organizations, such as the Red Cross and others, also have brilliant projects. My question to you is, what is it that sets Scouting apart from any other organization that's doing more or less the same? Thank you.
Well, I'd say that something I see that it's the main difference is that Scouting targets the youth and comes from an early age. So not all organizations have that same approach. When a young person leaves the Scout movement or is close to adulthood, that person has been through a lot of training, has been through many hours of education and learning in practice, learning by doing, and so on. I honestly don't know of the other organizations. You mentioned the Red Cross, but I don't. At least I can be ignorant about the Red Cross in your example, but I don't think that they do the same thing as we do in Scouting. From an early age, learning by doing, and character, building character. As I mentioned before, when Felipe asked me the question about skills, the thing about commitment is so important. Here in Brazil, we talk about anybody, even who has not been a Scout, he'll ask, "É palavra de escoteiro?" Is that a Scout oath you're saying? Do you abide to what you're saying? That is very deep into people who have gone through Scouting. And I think that the character, and thank you very much for your question. Made me think. Chrissy's going to help.
No, I think you summarize it beautifully, and I want to build on that, because what we have is the Scout method. From the classroom to the boardroom, we believe that a very simple set of principles allows us to educate the individual. So this is about learning by doing. This is also about being out in nature, learning in small groups of peers. Radical if you look at other educational approaches. Supported by adults, but youth leads themselves. And it goes on. And this is what really sets us apart, that we educate the individual and we make them ready for life to take on whichever challenge they choose to take on, or whichever challenge they have to take on. And I think the beauty of having the Scout method is that it can be applied literally anywhere. And I think that makes us special in the way that it's a Swiss pocket knife for whichever situation you face in life.
That's fantastic. I mean, what a great question. Give me a fish and I'll eat for a day, and show me how to fish and I will eat a lifetime. I guess it's also a nice way to put it. Do we have any other questions?
Hello, I am Marina, here from Brazil. I represent the Volunteer Foundation. Thank you for the presentation. It was amazing to understand more about the Scouting movement. And my question is for Chrissy. I would love to know if there is any project or experience around the world focusing on the early childhood, because I think that is from 0 to 6 years is the beginning of life in which we have the opportunity to build our character. So there's neurologically speaking, our brains is forming, and it's very important for us to start from the beginning to build all these skills. So do you have any experience in this movement, and there is any intention to bring these projects to Brazil, if you have any of it?
That's a wonderful question, and I promise I did not get that planted. But in a number of our member organizations around the world, we're experimenting with program for age groups 6 and younger. Some of them are called beavers, some of them are called turtles, and you'll find a variety of animal names around the world. But the idea and the intention is exactly that a lot of our formative experiences of how we perceive life, how we feel supported, our initial connections, that happens much earlier than the typical start date of 6 years when you can actually get involved in most countries in the scouting program. And there have been extremely successful trials, and for example, in the UK, they've officially launched this section, this age section. And certainly you need to make adjustments in terms of how you get volunteers to be qualified to work with that age group, because that has specific needs. But the results that we're seeing of bringing the Scout method and our approach to non-formal education to that age group has been absolutely tremendous. And we're so excited to see in 5-10 years down the road, when those kids grow up, to really understand and measure that impact. Now, I can't speak for Brazil and how you're going to do beavers or turtles. I'll leave that to the national leadership, but I can tell you that across the world, we're running a number of very successful pilots on it.
I can add that the Brazilian National Conference has approved the creation of this section called filhotes, which is maybe puppies, right? Very cute, right? And they are currently developing the program, and implementation is in place. Marina, we would love to talk to you about this later during our cocktail. So thank you for the question. We have one more here. 2 more.
Thank you very much. I am Jay Edson from the United States, and I'm going to defer to which of the scouts would like to answer this. But the good professor talked a lot about the importance of hands-on learning, teamwork, collaboration, right? And being able to touch and do together. So it made me think back about Lord Baden-Powell and his emphasis on the patrol method. So my question to you as scouts is, do you see the patrol method going beyond just what you do with your scout group? Does it apply to your larger lives? And how can us as adult leaders and supporters help you apply the patrol method beyond scouting, in scouting and beyond scouting, for that collaborative hands-on learning that we're looking for?
Wonderful question. Who would like to? Obek has raised her hand. Let's go.
Can you hear me? No. It's okay. It's okay. So I think for me personally, the patrol method has inspired me to look up for leadership roles, because at least in Honduras, you're able to see that there is a guide, and we have the less, not the less, the other ones of the patrol, and then we have the sub-guide, right? So at least for me, it made me realize how important leadership is, how important it is for you to aspire to grow, to make yourself noticeable, and to make sure that you are making a change. So it is really important that the patrol system you take, it's the one that you're going to give to the world, to make sure that what you learn, like group collaboration, being able to work with everyone in every aspect, and being able to provide a little of yourself in everything that you do is very important. And following up the leadership skills that you're able to produce to have a better version of yourself in any type of environment that you are involved.
Oh, I think I'm gonna have to answer too. So I think it's also what she said, but included about the teamwork. Like, let's be real, a lot of our kids today don't know how to teamwork. We are getting kind of selfish. So these methods codes teach them a lot, not only about being leaderships, about teamwork, but also take care with the necessities and responsibilities. So it's a project for the scouts like 100 years. So it makes sure that we're doing good.
Well, I'm sure you have more questions. I have good news for you. These speakers will be with us all night. All right? So we will soon come to the next phase of our evening, where I will encourage you to go and ask these questions face to face. Try to understand what we have, what they have done with the resources that you've provided. This is also a big part of why we're here and why they are here for you as well. So with that said, I would like to thank everybody for the questions. Thank all of our speakers and our lovely panelists. We have gifts for you as well. We'll give them later. Thank you so much, and we'll call Guy back on the stage.
So first of all, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank our speakers. And also want to thank all of you who had great questions, who are participating actively on the event. For now, we're going to move on. We're heading to the end of our afternoon event. And we're going to move on to our colleagues from the World Scout Foundation, who are going to talk to us how we can continue to contribute with the impact of scouting around the world. So please help me to welcome my colleagues from the World Scout Foundation on stage.
Well, thank you very much. And I was just sitting there and listening, and I thought, wow. Wow, the first experimental impact seminar in this form we did in 2018, actually in Mexico City. And it has developed massively. And I want just to say thank you to all the speakers and to the keynote speaker and to the panelists for being part of this and to make this every time a better impact seminar. So thank you very much. I'm proud that we have accomplished together, and I'm so grateful to each of you for being part of this journey. Scouting changes lives, we heard, and the room is a living proof of it. Many of you are Baden-Powell Fellows, and you have helped bring scouting values and leadership to young people all around the world. So first, let me say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for your support. But as we know, there is still so much more we can and we should do. The world our young people are growing up in today is challenging, maybe even more so than ever. You have heard Professor Costin to share the needs of education and young people in the future, and you have seen how Scouting is already providing a hands-on solution to many of these needs through non-formal education. When we empower young people through Scouting, we drive lasting positive impact in communities around the world. That's something we all believe in. And now, I'm asking you to help us to do even more. The 2024 annual appeal is our chance to continue that work, to reach more young people, to grow the movement, and to make sure that every child, no matter where they are, can have the opportunity to be part of Scouting, and so have an opportunity to be ready for life. For those of you who have supported us before, thank you very much. And I hope you will continue supporting us, because Scouting truly needs you. And if you are new here today, welcome. There is so much good that we can do together, and I love for you to be part of it. This is about changing lives of these young people and making them ready for life. It's about giving them the opportunity to learn, grow, and create more peaceful, inclusive, and a sustainable world for us all. And I know that with your support, actually also your donations, we can make sure that the future becomes a reality. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, for caring, and for making a difference. Let's keep doing this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark, for those very inspiring words and for saying thanks to our supporters. A lot of why we're here is to showcase the impact of this work, and I think you nailed that, and also our speakers have really presented this impact. So, as Professor Costin said, we need to be persistent, and I will practice my persistence now. I will also share that when you arrived at the event, you received a welcome pack. And this welcome pack, there was a welcome letter, and there was also a personal letter from me with an overview of your contributions to date. And I wanted to say thank you for the contributions you have made. And we also stated on this letter the amounts that you still have scheduled for the future, or if you've already fulfilled your pledge, how much you're missing for the next circle of giving. So we are counting on your continuous support, and that's what the annual appeal is all about. And if you didn't catch it in Mark's speech, I'm going to translate it to you. We love what you've done. Is there any more? So the annual appeal is all about driving annual contributions from our donors, from you. And so far this year, we launched it a couple of weeks ago with the goal to reach $1 million until the end of 2024. And so far, we have over 221,000 actually, I just checked on my phone, which is over 22% there. And throughout the end of the week or the weekend, we would like to count on you to come as close as possible to this goal, right? So I also wanted to say that that project that we mentioned, Transforming Lives from the Brazilian Scouts, as part of this event and the legacy that we would like to leave for Brazil, a sum of the amount that we raise from today until the end of the annual appeal will go to securing funds to ensure Scouting can be present in vulnerable communities in partnership with schools in the afternoon moments, so we can provide Scouting to vulnerable children in vulnerable communities. So really clear, and we have the leadership of the Scouts of Brazil present tonight, so you can talk to them about this lovely project. Now let's think back a little bit on the speakers, and they were fantastic, and they had this little game with a clap, so how about you clap once if you felt inspired by them? Lovely, a lot of claps. Good, because we're going to count on your inspiration. We really need to provide these young people who are committed to driving change in their communities, but they need the resources. And this is where you come in, and this is where you can make a difference. And it's really easy, because when you came in, we gave you a little paper, right, together with the ticket. The ticket you scanned, but you have a little paper, and it looks like that, right? And I would like you to get a pen, and we provided that as well, we're making it easy for you. So we provided a pen, and I wanted to take this paper and write your name and write the amount that you felt inspired, okay, to contribute and to commit and donate until the end of the year. And you can do it through the different ways that it allows for tax deductions and all those important things. And sign, and you can give me this paper back. I'll be here all week. I have a lovely folder. We're going to put this paper, and by the end of the event, we're also going to share with you how much we managed to raise for this lovely cause throughout the event. This is our ask for you, so that you can really contribute to scaling the impact of Scouting, not only on these individuals, but all the 57 million around the world. Thank you for everything you're doing, and now I'll pass the word to Nicole, who will talk about the next steps.
We're now coming to the end of this incredible Impact of Scouting seminar.